journal page that I'm doing for today's hop. I get out a selection of things that I think I might use. I use most of what I have shown you here, but I'll start with the paper. This paper is by Stamperia. It is a book called Imagine. This is a maxi pad of 22 double-faced sheets, and I'm picking out just 2 of them, one of which I will use the whole of, and this one which I will fussy cut. Now that I have cut that out, I am going to use my scoring tool, which is basically just a tiny ball tool, and I'm going to score it along the line so that when I bend it, it bends perfectly and it doesn't crease crooked or make those funny extra lines. And here I'm testing which way I want it to be, and I've decided I want the heart on the inside. Here I've got my piece of paper and I'm just working out where I want to tear it. Now you could just tear it, fold it and tear it, use a ruler against it and tear it. This is what is called a tearing ruler. It has a smoother side and a more coarse side. It's very old. I don't think companies even make these anymore, but I rather enjoy using it because it makes my tearing straight and it gives a good even texture. What I've done is I've worked out that my paper is too long for my journal and I am just trimming off the excess. I am paper trimmer challenged. That's an understatement. I can never get them to work, so I'm using my guillotine. And now I am just checking that everything fits properly before I move on to my granny's pattern paper. When my granny passed away, I received a whole bag of her patterns that she used to use to make her own clothes, and I rather like using them in my art journals and on various mixed media projects. So I'm just trimming off the excess and working out where I want the writing to go, and again just trimming off some of the excess, which I will then tear, because a torn edge looks much nicer than a cut edge, especially as I'd hacked it off. Now I've got out my vintage photo and I'm going around all the edges, and I particularly like using it on the torn edge to help accentuate this. On this page particularly, you can see the white edge of where the internal paper is exposed, and I like to cover that up. And again, just going lightly around the edge. Now I've got out my collar gel by Stamperia. It is a clear gel glue, and I'm going to start adhering the tissue paper from the pattern. I'm only putting gel over the top of this particular piece, and then I'm going to continue to cover the rest of my page where my pattern piece will go before I start adhering it. Once I've placed it where I want it, I'm just going to smooth it out. If you get wrinkles, it really doesn't matter because it's all part of the kind of vintage look and shabby chic look. Having stuck the one page, I'm now gluing the other page, and then I will trim off the excess. To save your paintbrush from drying out, wrap it in a baby wipe and pop it on one side until you've finished, and you can go and wash it later. But just don't forget to go and wash it later. Using a liquid glue, I am now adhering my trimmed sheets of paper to the edges, making sure that it goes right to the edge of my journal page, and using a piece of roller towel or tissue, just press the edges down. That way, if any glue seeps out, it goes into the tissue paper and doesn't dry shiny on your project. Okay, now we're getting ready for the next stage, and that means that we have to blow dry it. So I am drying both sides of my piece of paper just to make sure that it is crispy dry. And you can see a previous journal page here, and I think at this stage it's just about done. Now it's time to get out my favorite part, the fiddly bits. So that envelope that I cut out earlier, I'm now working out that I would like to glue it down but be able to still open it and read a message. Here I'm using my ruler and my craft knife to cut a little slot in the envelope, and then I'm going to use my little tiny punch and punch a hole on either side of the slot. This helps to prevent the slot from tearing further than you would like it to later. And then I've just inked those edges so they're easy to see and got that ready for my journal page. So that my envelope stands out from the rest of the page, again I'm inking all its edges, and especially when it's all folded in. Having glued that down, I've now got my stamps out and I'm busy choosing what I want to put where. I knew all along that I wanted to use this dress, which is why I have then chosen to use the little heart, which has a repeat pattern of the writing that's in the dress, and the other heart that has the music notes in it. I'm using archival ink in black to stamp my images in because I want to be able to work on top of them with a water-based ink. Now that my stamping is finished, I get out my little tickets that go with the ones that are in the paper, and I again will ink the edges and glue them in place. I have a collection of old books that I have bought at vintage markets. Some come from my mom's library of books that she was going to get rid of or throw away. And this one is an old, I think it's a church service book. It's really, really old. It has a beautiful script and then of course all this lovely music. So I'm including these torn up edges and again inking them to mirror the edges that we tore right at the beginning, and the music notes to repeat the image in the dress and in the little heart that I have put on the left hand page. Now that everything is ready, I am squishing oxide inks onto my craft sheet in various colors. Once I'm happy with all the colors that I think I will use that will go with the paper colors that are already printed, I spritz it with water and use a tiny little paintbrush and fill in all the areas that I feel kind of work. What I do like to do when I'm doing this process is repeat colors. So I've started with the bee in pink at the top, then I'm working down at the dress, and slowly but surely I will work my way through all the images, repeating the blues and the pinks, and then add a little bit of vintage photo as well at the end. Once I've finished with the painting, it's time to clear up and start removing that excess paper from the top of and bottom of my pages. I find it easier just to use sandpaper because if I try and trim it with my scissors, I can't quite get close enough to the edge. So sandpaper is my go-to for tissue paper on edges. Then of course I ink it so that it matches with everything else. And while I've got that ink going, I'm going to work it down the middle of my page just to give it that extra vintage feel. One of the things I like to do when I'm doing a journal page is build layers. So I've already got a layer of tissue paper, scrapbook paper, I've added tickets and stamping and paint, and now I am using Artistiko in pink, which is a metallic pink wax by Stamperia, through this music stencil. And then once that's done, and I'm happy with the fact that it's balanced and I've got it everywhere, my page is ready. I hope you enjoyed how I created that page. Here you can see the repeat inside of the ticket and close-up photos showing you the details in the pages of the love ticket, some of the stamping, the tissue paper, the stenciling, and you can see that I like to build layers that use color and repetition to help lead your eye around the page. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and enjoy the rest of the hop.